So good morning. Today we're going to do a little walkabout on the southeast part of the grove, and this year this walkabout is about 4 weeks earlier in the season, so the mangoes are not going to be as developed, but it's a beautiful morning, and so let's go take a look. So we're going to try to sort of duplicate the tour that we did last year. Of course, it's 4 weeks difference, but we're starting at the south fence and working our way north to the driveway. So we will cover each of the rows of fruit trees, mostly mangoes, in the southeast section. This first one here is Tess Pollock, and Tess Pollock is typically a really good producer, and it's looking great this year. Last year, as you might recall, there was very few fruit on any of our Tess Pollock trees, so that was really weird. But this year, yay, we seem to be getting a lot of fruit. Of course, it's smaller because it's 4 weeks earlier in the season this year for this video. So this is our canistel tree, and it is looking much happier than it did last year. It's sort of struggled in the first couple of years, probably because it didn't get a lot of water, but now it's really looking nice, and hopefully we can keep it fairly small and so everything's easy to pick. It's a little bit early for flowers right now. They should be emerging pretty soon. Here's one of our cherry trees, and you can see there's these small fruit and then some larger fruit, so timing of the bloom was, not typical. We had sort of 2 blooms on this tree, and many of the trees actually. It's just a product of having cool and then warm and cool and then warm, instead of having a big cold snap and then working your way towards spring. So this is all cherry here. Here's another cherry tree right next to it. This area behind these trees, we used to have like 25-gallon plants when we were selling big plants, and so this was a wind screen. That's why they're planted pretty closely together. Of course, we're really selling fruit more than we are plants now, so we have a lot of empty space behind. Empty and shaded. Here's Mango Francis, or Madame Fritzi, one of the most well-known mangoes of Haiti. And this particular variety is normally a very heavy producer. So we've got what looks like sort of an average fruit set. It could bloom again. Some of these panicles, like this one, didn't set any fruit. But basically, there's a fair amount for being a small tree. Next one over here, sort of falling out all over itself, but this is Gary, and Gary is a cross between Pettigrew and Carey, most likely, and we just have a lot of fruit on it. Last year we had a lot of fruit too, so it doesn't always produce a lot of fruit, but 2 years in a row, yay. We did cut a major branch out of the middle because it was getting too tall and hard to pick the fruit, and it doesn't seem to have affected the fruiting at all. This is Nam Doc Mai, and we actually have two Nam Doc Mais right next to each other. And I think the same thing happened last year, that this particular Nam Doc Mai tree had a lot more fruit than this other one. This particular tree doesn't seem to have any fruit on it. There might be some on the other side. Part of the reason could be that it's shaded by this other Nam Doc Mai. I don't know. There might be some other thing going on also. But here's the big story of this row. This is all kit mango. Just a crazy amount of fruit. And from this entire tree, which, this tree's fairly old, and kit is a really regular producer, except for last year. And last year, we, I think, got about four to eight mangoes off of this whole tree, which is basically nothing yield for this particular variety. And this year it seems to be making up for lost time. Just a crazy amount of fruit. I've been thinning some of it, but I don't get around, and there's no way to thin the top of the tree, so I try to trim a little bit here and there. But basically, it's up to the tree to drop what it can't hold. But we are looking forward to a good kit year this year. So here we are on the north side of the kit tree, and I just noticed something. We have a lot of fruit this size, but right up in this area of the tree, apparently it bloomed earlier, and we have much larger fruit. So that's sort of fun. We've got like 4 fruit that might develop at least a month earlier than this other fruit. Okay, so here's the other side of the test pollock tree that we started the other row with. So this side, of course, is looking good also. There's a little bit of hurricane damage still up in that top of the tree. But this used to be a very large tree. It produced very few fruit, but they were really big, like 4 pounds. And we cut that back, and I've been top working it with Phoenix. So most of this right here is Phoenix. We're not going to get fruit this year, but hoping for next year. And here we have Varieties. And since last year, I've gotten a little bigger, but we also cleaned out a lot of the scraggly branches from below, which makes it easier to see what's going on with the trees, and also it makes it less hazardous when you're picking, because all these little branches can scratch you and sometimes tear your sleeves and whatever. So these are all the same age, planted the same time, and the only one that has flowers and fruit is the middle one. I really don't know why that is, but we have flowers and young fruit on the same tree. Another thing that I just very recently did was put a lot of mulch along here. Varieties definitely benefits from more water than a lot of the other trees we grow, and since our irrigation system is minimal, the mulch should help with retaining some of the moisture. Here's a cherry tree, little branch from the hurricane that we haven't gotten out yet. But it doesn't, some of these branches don't have much fruit at all. This happens to be the southeast section of this tree. Not sure if that's why there's not much going on here, but yeah, basically this tree does not have a lot of fruit. Unfortunately, what fruit it does have seems to be on the near the ground, which the weight of the fruit is going to just pull those little branches down, and so we'll have to prop them up in order to not, grow the fruit on the ground. Here's another cherry tree. Of course, we have fruit, not a massive amount, but what's on the tree is probably going to stay. Cherry is very well known for keeping the fruit that it does form on the tree. Of course, when you have a panicle like this, there's 3 fruit on one panicle, it might not be able to support that. But since I'm seeing not a whole lot of fruit on these cherry trees, I'm just sort of letting it take its course, see what it can hold. Here's Valencia Pride. Fun stuff. Lots of little fruit. Of course, there's no way that this tree can support, 8 fruit per panicle. So just sort of take off the smallest ones, and anything that looks the least bit yellow or deformed, good time to take it off. But don't want to waste too much time right now doing that. Anyway, we did take a large branch out of the center of the tree, the tallest branch. I'm seeing some fruit way up there, which isn't, that should be pretty easy to pick, but this particular tree seems to have areas where it didn't set fruit, and fortunately a lot of areas that it did. We have a little Beverly. This is cherry that's growing in front of it, and then Valencia Pride on that side, and behind it is a Beverly. I don't see any flowers on that, I think basically because everything else is crowding it out. Here's a cherry though that seems to have a lot more fruit on it than the one just on the other side of the Valencia Pride. There's actually 2 trees together here, but fair amount of fruit. This is a tree that was really being crowded out. Cut it back. I was going to eliminate it completely. Decided sort of late on that I would convert it to fruit punch. I put fruit punch on, and no blooms, no fruit this year. It's grown a whole lot, but darn, didn't get it. Won't be getting any fruit from that tree. And this is Alfonso. It's this side of the tree anyway is, I don't see any fruit at all. Take a little peek around the side. So basically, the fruit is right here. Not a whole lot. I see 6, 7 fruit coming off of this one branch, and all the other branches are completely without fruit as far as I can tell. So I don't know if it's going to bloom again. Sometimes one branch will bloom at a different time than another, but so far not looking like a good year for Alfonso. Here's the turpentine tree. Last year it looked really weird. It didn't have a lot of fruit on it last year, and the fruit that it did have was on one lateral branch and weighing the whole branch down. So we have trimmed that. After the fruit was off, we trimmed that branch off, and the tree is looking much more normal and healthy, and looks like a good crop of turpentine on this tree. And then over here we have Venus that was grafted last year, but it's of course bigger and older now. This is a new variety here that we haven't yet named. It's a rather small growing variety, so I grafted it high on this tree. This one I haven't grafted anything on yet. Put some elephant on this particular seedling. This is sort of our little toddler zone, you know, little small trees. And then this is Providence. So hopefully we'll get some production out of these trees next year. We have some older topwork things I forgot to mention before, but that's mostly lemon zest on that particular seedling, and it doesn't look like much fruit is going to form this year there. This is coconut cream. Coconut cream, it doesn't seem to be a very huge producer, but it does have quite a bit of fruit on it, so hoping for a pretty good crop of coconut cream this year. This side doesn't seem to have quite as much fruit, but you know, of course, it seems like those lower branches get it. We have some very happy weeds here. This used to be a Kent tree. I have been top working it to Venus, so possibly next year we'll get some Venus fruit. And this is Kent. Got quite a bit of fruit on it now, but a lot of that will fall. This one's gonna fall anyway, so quickly hasten its demise. This is Duncan. And I see one cluster of fruit on this tree. Right next door is another cherry tree, so 2 clusters actually I can see of Duncan. So not sure if this tree is going to have much in the way of fruit this year, but time will tell. So here's cherry, this whole section here. Seems to be a little less than an average year as far as productivity. There's certainly fruit hanging in all of the areas of the tree, it's just not loaded. Here's our formerly known as Pimseng Mun tree, and this tree, when it was producing Pimseng Mun fruit, the fruit were significantly smaller than our other Pimseng Mun trees, so I decided to top work it. This particular branch is cherry, so that will be cherry fruit. And it actually is most of this side of the tree. Back here, and this other branch in the back here, that has been top worked to Promchimea. So it will be easy to tell the difference between Promchimea and cherry. I try to do that. If I put more than one variety on a tree, I want to make it obvious which variety it is that I'm picking at the time, because you know, you can get sort of tired and the brain shuts off during mango season. So easy to tell the difference between cherry and Promchimea. We've got a little bit of fruit up there, but that's probably cherry. So it looks like nothing in the land of Promchimea this year from this tree. This is Tess Pollock. It seems like last year what fruit we had was lower in the tree. Again, normally a very heavy producer. We've got fruit more on the top of the tree this year. There's some more up here. But the story with this tree is that I forgot I was preparing budwood or graftwood. To remember to graft that. Sort of have run out of some of our varieties that we graft ourselves, so I've got to start working on that. But whenever there's new growth on a part of the tree that a scion that you want to use for grafting, the best thing to do is just to knock it off, and other buds will start developing from these other places. It's just nice to remember to go check the graftwood that you're preparing. Anyway, around this side, we have Mont Blanc, and these grafts took a long time to develop. I did a lot in it'd be August of 2016. I started grafting a lot and went into the winter. This was August of 2016, and it took about 6 months before the grafts started growing. And grafts that I did on other trees grew a lot faster than that. So it was sort of weird. But I had years ago had a Mont Blanc in another part of the grove, and of course after I got rid of it, somebody came and said they really wanted Mont Blanc fruit. So this was my solution: get some Mont Blanc going quickly on this part of the Tess Pollock tree. So it doesn't look like we are going to get any fruit this year, but next year we'll probably get a lot. And then this neighbor tree is the Duncan, and last year it had so much fruit on one branch that the whole branch broke, but it seems to have recovered fairly well. We've got clusters of fruit back here. Whoops. The rest of this tree. This younger growth doesn't seem to have any, but we do have fruit here, and then there, and a little bit in the back of the tree. Here's our crazy longan in a pot. We trimmed it way back, and of course it's filled out and it's now a bushy tree. I'm hoping that we'll get another crop of longan on this tree, but no flowers yet. This is one of our lemon meringue trees, and I don't see any flowers or fruit on it now, hoping that it's just a late bloomer, so literally this year, but we'll see. So here's the other side of the big turpentine tree that we started the last row with, and you can see lots of clusters of fruit on this side also. Tree's looking very healthy. Here's a little seedling turpentine tree, and basically I have top worked it to prom chimea, but I'm not seeing any fruit this year from that, so I'll need to trim it and get it ready for next year. Here's Glen. Certain sections of this tree have nice fruit set. Definitely not all of the tree though. This is a topwork tree. It used to be Jubilee, and now it's mostly Best and Juliet. Here's our little red sugar apple hiding in the shadows. Of course, no fruit or flowers yet. Another glen tree. Here's more glen. And this is a glen right next door. I don't see any fruit on it. And this other glen, nothing going on down here, but some of the high parts of the tree in the back have some fruit. One more glen. And I don't see fruit on this one either. This is another lemon meringue or poppy clay. And I'm seeing a little bit of fruit in this area. Not really seeing anything anywhere else. A little bit over here. Here's another carry plant. This is looking better than most, I'd say. Got fruit there and on this side. This one seems to be looking even better. Carry again. We've got a lot of fruit on this side of the tree, which is the east side. Sort of unusual to see this many fruit form on one panicle, but that's carry again. Of course, I need to thin that. So this was formerly a Jakarta tree. It was huge and it died fairly suddenly. So we took it out at ground level, and because of all the roots that were in the ground, I took the lazy way and planted seeds all the way around the trunk, the stump really. And 2 of the seeds actually produced viable seedlings. The other one sort of got crowded out by the roots, and also the lack of water didn't help. So on this one seedling I have grafted, I believe that is sweet tart, and so that one is well on its way. I'll cut back this seedling portion and just have this grafted portion. And I might graft onto the other one also. I did put one graft on there a while ago and it failed. But I'm sort of interested in, of course, production, but also to see if either one of these rootstocks produces good fruit, because I put interesting seeds down there as rootstock. So we'll see. This is another carry tree. Got a lot of carry fans out there, so trying to have the right number of trees for the customers. This area seems to have some fruit, but I'm not seeing a lot over here, so this is not one of our better producing trees. And again, we have another lemon meringue tree that doesn't have much fruit on it at all. So here's another one of our Valencia Pride trees. We took a large part of it out of the center out, and we have a lot of fruit, especially on that particular branch. Here's another carry tree. last one in this section of the grove. And this one looks like it has quite a bit of fruit set. So yay. Here's a tree that I top worked to fruit punch. Got some fruit here, but not a lot. There's a little cluster up on top. So I hope that the fruit punch in the back holds a lot of its fruit, because it would be great to be able to share this fruit with quite a few people so they can taste fruit punch. This is our red sugar apple tree, another one of them. As you might recall, this tree had more cold damage than the one that we saw just a little while ago on the same video. And so the cold damage meant that the leaves dropped off, so we have a lot of new leaves on this particular plant, and we don't have that same thing on the other plant. The other plant has a lot of its old leaves still. This is another lemon meringue tree, Popuflay, and this section of the tree is the best that we've seen so far in this section of the grove. Quite a bit of fruit set on this side. Of course, some of it is already turning yellow. The small fruits no longer growing. Yeah, a lot of this part of the tree didn't bloom at all yet. I'm not sure if it will bloom still or not. We'll just have to see how it goes. So here's another Valencia Pride tree. And again, trying to make it smaller. It's hard to do after they get big. We had several years where I was busy with other stuff, couldn't really trim back like I should have. So now we have a lot of big, especially Valencia Pride trees to deal with. But even so, we seem to have a lot of fruit on the top branches. This used to be a Kent tree. It was really struggling, so cut it back and top worked it with mostly rosy gold, and recently put on 3 more grafts, I guess 4 more grafts, because of some of these other branches were not real vigorous, and so I cut those off. And you can tell there's little action here on some of these new grafts. They have little tiny leaves, so that's always cute. Here's a tree that used to be Tess Pollock. We had a lot of Tess Pollock trees, so top working some of them to other varieties. This particular variety is Seacrest, a project that I mostly completed about a year ago, really. We had to regraft some stuff after the hurricane went through, but we don't have any sign of fruit or flowers at the moment. So not sure if we'll get any this year, but the tree is looking really, really green and healthy. Preparing a little bit of graftwood here and there. As long as I wanted to trim that to get more branching, as long as I was trimming it, just do it a little bit more slowly, prepare some graftwood, and then trim. This is Floragon. Just a very typical open spreading growth habit. Never seems to look great, but it produces a lot of fruit that's very tasty. Just a lot of fruit that hangs in clusters all over. It's a very reliable producer. This is another Duncan tree. You can see some clusters of fruit in the center, the top part there. I don't really see much else on the tree, so perhaps it will bloom again. Don't know. Not going to be very much Duncan at this rate. If it doesn't bloom anymore, we're in trouble. So this is one of our Mamey sapote trees, and the reason it doesn't have many leaves right now is because of the drought that we've been through. It gets a little tiny bit of water from our irrigation system, but as you can tell from all the grass around, we don't water like most people do. Certainly not like the average homeowner. We've got a lot of new leaves coming out, so that's a good sign. And sometime very soon, probably within the next 2 weeks, we're going to sort of redo the irrigation for this particular plant, and so that it can be happier going forward. This is Jakarta. It did get a little bit of hurricane damage on this side of the tree, but we do have fruit. We've got some very small fruit on the top and some sort of medium size, or actually sort of still small, but further along. This particular tree sometimes has as many as 3 crops, so I'm sort of hoping for another flowering, at least in parts of the tree. But the tree itself is looking fairly healthy compared to what it looked like after the hurricane, certainly. This is another lemon meringue tree. Again, not much fruit. The conditions just didn't seem to be very good for this particular variety, at least not yet. We do have, the odd fruit here and there, like here and there, but not much. This is Nam Doc Mai. Lots more Nam Doc Mai than, for instance, lemon meringue. So got a lot of small fruit all the way up, and got some more here. Looking good. And then next door here is Florigon. And again, lots of fruit for Florigon. Okay, so here we are on the last row. And the last row is what used to be the big Haydens. Wow. We've cut something out of every one of these trees and a lot off of one of the trees. But this particular Hayden has one branch of Hayden left on it, and that particular branch has a lot of fruit. We've just got all sorts of fruit hanging over there. And a little bit further up. The rest of this tree I've top worked to Ugly Betty. This actually is a seedling tree, and this was the first part of this area that I top worked to the Ugly Betty. But unfortunately, it doesn't have any flowers or fruit on it this year. So next year, I'm hoping for some. So no tree climber, dog. I know you are. So I'm still working on some of these little branches, trying to decide if I want to graft onto them or cut them off. But at the end of this rather long and somewhat scraggly branch is a graft. So having these other shoots on it, I think, helps keep this area active to support that graft. And so we'll see how that goes. Got a few seedling trees along this area that I'm grafting onto also. This happens to be our most serious trim job up front. These shoots here are Hayden, and I want to convert this whole area to pineapple pleasure. I did have some grafts going, and then a hurricane sort of ripped them off, and then we had some other strong wind events. So basically I'm waiting for this area to get a little bit more established, and then I'll graft again. This was a seedling tree, and I grafted onto that also. So next year we should have some fruit from that. This is a very nicely growing variety that I put on here. It's very compact, makes a pretty tree, and the fruit's nice. We haven't yet named the fruit, but that should be coming soon. Again, another Hayden tree. And since these branches were fairly low, I decided not to eliminate them, but rather to graft onto them, so we would have, more mango square footage or whatever. This tree, again, I've chosen things that look radically different from Hayden because there's a lot of Hayden growth on here now. The goal is to eliminate most of it, put these other varieties on. So the varieties that I have chosen for this particular tree, mostly elephant, and then also some guava mango. The guava mango I put on at the last minute because I had Scions that actually Walter Zill gave me, and I wanted to put them on something right away so that I could increase the chance that they would take. And this particular area was at the perfect stage when I had the Scions. And so I do have guava mango up there, and pretty much the rest of the tree that's grafted is elephant. So here's our last tree of the tour this morning. This, of course, is also a Hayden tree, and as you can tell from over here, it's sort of a tough tree to trim. We've got two large trunks going straight up and supporting quite a bit of tree up there. Makes it hard to reach the fruit because it starts at whatever, like 12 feet high or something. And so I need to get some tree trimmers in, but I also need to tell them, please, please, please be very careful because this whole area I am top working to Marlis. And so that's why the ladder's here actually. Whenever I get an area that is growing nicely, I prepare future graftwood there for other particular situations on the tree. So for instance, a lot of this, like this is an older graft, and then I put some younger grafts or grafts more recently that haven't taken yet on these other shoots. So most of this area is already grafted to Marlis, but I just sort of can't help myself. When I see a nice green shoot and I have graftwood, I put it on. But Marlis, one of the reasons I put Marlis on this particular tree is it's a beautiful mango, and I thought most people see this tree as they come through the gate, and wouldn't it be nice to have all these beautiful big mangoes, sort of greeting them. So anyway, hope that works out. So that completes the tour of the southeast section of the Grove, all these trees back here. It's been sort of an unusual winter, but I guess all of them are in their own way. We've had cool weather, followed by warm weather, cool weather, followed by warm weather, like at least 3 or 4 instances of that. So while we don't have much fruit on some of the varieties, there's still a little bit of hope for one more flowering. We'll just have to see how it works out, and we'll hope for a good mango season 2018.